For 70 years, the United States Navy ruled the world's oceans without rival. No fleet challenged it, no nation dared. The shadow of an American carrier group was enough to silence a crisis before it began. This week, that era ended quietly in 21 miles of water known as the Strait of Hormuz. President Donald Trump ordered a naval blockade of the strait. He announced it publicly, emphatically, declaring that beginning Monday morning, no vessel would pass and no tanker would exit. The blockade, he assured the world, would be absolute. Then China sailed straight through it. On Tuesday morning, the Chinese oil tanker Rich Star, carrying approximately 250,000 barrels of methanol and owned by the Shanghai Shuan Shipping Company, already under American sanctions for trading with Iran, crossed the strait without incident. No confrontation, no warning shot, not even a challenge from the United States Navy. Reuters confirmed the passage. Navigation tracking systems confirmed it. And the most expensive, most technologically advanced maritime force in human history confirmed it by doing absolutely nothing. The Strait of Hormuz is no ordinary waterway. It is the narrow corridor through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply flows. Iran commands its northern shore. Oman borders the south. Through these 21 miles passes the lifeblood of the global economy. Energy for Europe, fuel for Asia, the strategic calculations of every major power. Iran chose a masterstroke of asymmetric pressure. It did not close the strait entirely, an act that would have been an open declaration of war against every shipping nation on Earth. Instead, it kept the waterway open, but only for its friends. Chinese vessels passed freely. Russian vessels passed freely. Indian and Pakistani ships passed freely. American and Israeli vessels, and those of their closest allies, did not. In structural terms, Iran imposed its own sanctions regime, not in dollars or tariffs, but in maritime access. It drew a line in the water and dared Washington to cross it. Washington did not. China's response was a study in quiet confidence. Its Ministry of Defense issued a brief, deliberate statement. Chinese vessels would continue transiting the strait. Agreements with Iran would be honored. Interference in China's affairs would be futile. No threats, no bluster, only calm, declarative facts left for Washington to contemplate in silence. This is the language of a power that knows it holds the stronger hand. The moment carries weight far beyond a single tanker. Every foreign ministry, every naval command, every strategic planning office on the planet is now analyzing it with care. Because this was not merely a diplomatic embarrassment, it was a geopolitical data point of the first order. For decades, China has prepared for precisely this kind of confrontation. It built a blue water navy. It secured dominance in rare earth processing and supply chains critical to American industry, from computers to satellites to missile guidance systems. It forged deep energy relationships across the Middle East. Approximately 80% of the oil leaving Iran's principal export terminal on Karg Island flows directly to China. That is not peripheral trade. That is structural dependency. When Trump threatened an additional 50% tariff unless Beijing stopped supplying Iran with cruise missiles, China's answer was unmistakable. Its tankers sailed through the proclaimed blockade in broad daylight. The message required no translation. Your tariffs are a price we are prepared to pay. Your blockade is a line we are prepared to cross. Find another instrument of pressure if you have one. The deeper danger is not the tactical outcome in the strait. It is the pattern it reveals. A great power substituting performance for policy, mistaking the announcement of strength for strength itself. The United States Navy's admirals understood the difference between confronting small, non-state vessels in the Caribbean and risking escalation with a nuclear-armed peer that holds decisive economic leverage. They chose restraint. That decision was professional. But the public gap between presidential declaration and naval reality has now been recorded in navigation data, in Reuters dispatches, and in the permanent archives of every capital that matters. Credibility is the essential currency of great power competition. It cannot be declared. It is earned through consistency between words and actions. And it is spent, sometimes irreversibly, when those words and actions diverge so publicly. The world watched. It saw the United States announce total blockade. It saw China ignore it. It saw Chinese vessels cross freely while American forces stood down, and it drew its conclusions. This episode accelerates a shift we have tracked for years, from a unipolar order to something more genuinely multipolar, more contested, and more dangerous. Not because multipolarity itself is unstable, but because the transition between orders is always a period of elevated risk, especially when one principal actor confuses theatrical declarations with coherent strategy. The human stakes are immediate and vast. Energy markets tremble. Economies across Europe and Asia recalibrate their security. Global supply chains feel the tremor. And millions of ordinary people, drivers filling tanks, factories running shifts, families heating homes, will ultimately bear the cost of miscalculated power. What troubles most is not the specific crossing at Hormuz. It is the broader habit it exposes, a great democracy, founded on honest self-governance, responding to policy failure not with sober reassessment, but with louder assertion, distraction, and redirection. The Strait of Hormuz this week held up an unusually clear mirror. Iran demonstrated sovereign control without collapsing the global economy. China asserted its interests with measured precision. The United States declared a blockade it could not or would not enforce. The navigation data remains public. The record is set. Governments everywhere have drawn their conclusions. The urgent question that follows is whether the institutions of American democracy still retain the capacity to force an honest reckoning with strategic reality. The constitutional system was designed precisely for this purpose, to demand accountability, to replace failed approaches, to insist on coherence between rhetoric and action. Resilience is not the same as inevitability. The republic that emerges from this era will be shaped by the choices its citizens and leaders make right now, in this moment of genuine strategic consequence. See clearly, demand honesty, hold power, whatever its partisan color, to the standard that words and deeds must match. That is what this republic has always required, and that is exactly what this moment demands.